And let's remain standing, and Pastor Cal Callison will do the invocation.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was a little confused. When we do a business meeting at church, we always have a potluck, and I didn't smell any fried chicken coming up the stairs, but I made it to the right place. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, God, we just come before you, and I want to praise you for being the good creator of our world. God, I want to thank you for the salvation that we have only in Jesus Christ. You made a way for our sin to be forgiven, for Jesus to take that upon himself on the cross, to die in our place for our sin. And because of that, we can have peace with you. We can have forgiveness of sin, and we can have eternal and abundant life. And I thank you for that, Jesus. I thank you that you raised Jesus from the dead. I thank you that those who call on your name will be saved. I thank you for this opportunity to open this meeting in prayer. God, I thank you that the board and the leadership realize the value and the importance of asking your blessing upon their proceedings. God, I just ask right now that you would give this board wisdom, that you would guide them, that you would direct them, that you would help them make wise and good decisions for our county, that the people of Lee County would flourish because of what goes on here. God, I want to ask that they would rely on you for strength, that they would trust you. God, that you would bless them with healthy families, that you would draw them close to you every day, Jesus. We thank you for this, and we ask all of this in your blessing on this meeting in the holy name of Jesus the Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Nancy, will you do the roll call, please?
Acree, Allen, Bivens, Book,
Here.
Friel,
Here.
Gascoigne,
Here.
Hudson,
Present.
Kitson,
Present.
Copine,
Present.
Minimi,
Present.
Naylor,
Present.
Pearson,
Present.
Robertson,
Present.
Sheline,
Here.
Shippard, here, Scrogstad,
Here.
White,
Here.
Wilson,
Here.
Seaman,
Here.
Olson.
Here. Thank you. Under announcements, please mute or turn off your cell phones. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Kevin Lally for his diligent care of the county during the destructive storms a couple weeks ago that passed through. Kevin was up all night emailing and texting, and sometimes we need to stop and thank everything he does for the county. I know I was getting emails throughout the night. I think he stayed at the EOC that night, so I want to thank him for everything he does for us to keep us safe. So we'll move down to the approval of the board minutes of March 23, the county board meeting. Is there any changes or corrections? If none, we'll let them stand as read. I have no monthly resolutions. We'll go to zoning and planning. There's a monthly report in your packet. And we'll go petitions going to the zoning board of appeals. We have petition 23-P-1605, parcel number 7-2-36-400-008. Special use for solar energy systems, Dixon Township. Is there a motion to move the petition to the zoning board of appeals? Mr. Friel moves. Ms. Nancy seconds. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to petition 23-P-1606, parcel number 6-9-12-400-003. It's special use for a solar energy system in Franklin Grove Township. Is there a motion to move this petition to the ZBA? I've got Mr. Cobine moves and Mr. Scrogstad seconds it. Any discussion on this motion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go to the third one, petition 23-P-1607, parcel number 12-14-24-300-003. It's a special use for solar energy systems. It's in Marion Township. Is there a motion to move this petition to the zoning board of appeals? Mr. Friel moves. Mr. Kitson,
Gascoigne.
what's that? Oh, Gascoigne, sorry. Seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now there's no petitions going to the planning commission. We have none. So petitions coming from the zoning board of appeals, we have two. Let's get the motion on the table, then we'll have some discussion as always. Petition 23-P-1608, parcel number 18-08-16-400-008. It's a map amendment, special use for construction and operation of farm equipment, manufacturing, machinery, equipment, machinery, sales, and service business in South Dixon Township. Is there a motion? It's on the floor. Mr. Kitson moves. Mr. Lerum seconds it. Now we're up for discussion. Alice, would you like to come to the podium and explain what's going on here?
Good evening. Mr. Hicks has petitioned the county for a map amendment to change the zoning from an Ag-1 to an I-1. And in addition is requesting a special use for the purpose of operating his business. The parcel is adjacent to the city of Dixon, and the city has filed an objection against Mr. Hicks's petition. That puts a supermajority vote onto this board.
Which is 75%. And right, the supermajority, we have to have 75%.
Three-quarters vote.
Yep, to pass it. Anybody have any questions for Alice on this? The ZBA voted unanimously to pass it.
Yes.
Is there any questions or discussions?
What?
Mr. Book?
I'm just curious how there's a super majority required or where that, like, I mean, of all the zoning petitions we've ever had, all of them always require a majority, like what?
I'm going to defer this to Charlie because the objection was filed and our rules say that
Sure.
we have to have a supermajority.
It's not just the rules that say that you have to have the supermajority. There is a statute, and I can cite to it, 55 ILCS 5/5-12-114, subsection B, which says that if there is an objection to the map amendment on there, then it would need to be by a vote of 3/4 of the majority of the county board to approve it.
And that's the county board, so there's 20 of us, so we have to have 15 votes to pass this. Mr. Friel?
I've got a question also. If this was not the city, if it was an individual, would the same rule apply? If they filed a motion?
So there's a couple different ways that it could apply. So if you look in that same section, there's about 3 different exceptions to it, and one of them is the property section, which they're talking about, which makes this apply. There could be, if there was, just for example's sake, if signed by the owner of or owners of at least 20% of the land to be rezoned. If they did so, it would also have to be that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kitson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you sat in on the zoning board of appeals and listened to this, I think you'd realize that if I can just show the picture that Mr. Hicks of the building that he was going to build, if you're familiar with the property, it's the old hog buying station south of town. And it's a dilapidated piece of property. It looks bad coming into our town, looks bad coming into our county. It's going to be an addition. It's going to improve things. He's going to add jobs. I see it as a plus for the county. The community is going to win from it also. The city had their reasons to want to annex, but I think this is a real win and a plus for us. And I personally am glad Mr. Hicks chose Lee County to continue to build his business.
Yes,
And
Lerum?
besides the solar business, we have no economic development whatsoever. So this is, on my part, is economic development. So I
Absolutely.
think we all need to approve this.
Any more questions?
We'll do a roll call vote, correct?
I have one more question. Just curious, what kind of tax incentives has Mr. Hicks asked us for or special favors?
No favors, no tax incentive.
What? Okay.
Unless the finance committee's offering, is that where you're going with that, or?
That was not an offer.
Want to clarify that.
Be careful there, Mr. Woods.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Kitson.
This will be a roll call vote, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any more comments, questions? Thank you, Alice. We'll probably have you come up to the next one as well. Nancy, we do roll call?
Robertson,
Yes.
Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scroggstead,
Yes.
White. Yes. Wilson,
Yes.
Zeman,
Yes.
Bakery,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Friel,
Yes.
Gascoigne,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kidson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor. Yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Olson.
I'll abstain. I've got 17, so the motion passed. So now we'll go to number 2, petition 23-P-1609, parcel number 11-16-15-300-002, special use for campground, Lee Center Township. Is there a motion to approve this petition with the conditions presented? Mr. Kitson moves, Mr. Scroggstead seconds it. Any discussion? Alice, I think we'll have you come up. There's some circumstances on this that they worked through.
Yes, petitioner Judy Harvin has petitioned for a special use for a campground. We want to make it clear that it is a campground by definition. If you look at our code, that it meets the definition, but what she is actually doing is not going to be another Mendota Hills or Woodhaven. She does weekend retreats, yoga-based, offers massage, horse riding, very limited number of people, less than 20 typically. But she has a 40-acre parcel. There were several neighbors present that were all in favor, and the zoning board also unanimously voted with a recommendation to approve.
Any questions or comments for Alice? Yes, Mr. Scroggstead.
I just want to comment, I watched the ZBA on this, and the gal put together a really neat presentation, PowerPoint presentation, and this is really a neat thing for Lee County to have. If anyone could go back and look at those videos of what she put together, I think this was really awesome that we have something like this in our county. So.
More questions, comments? Thanks, Alice. So we have a first, we got a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So now we'll go down to petition 23-PC-70, the text amendment to the 10-15-15 wind energy systems. Is there a motion to hold this petition over until the May meeting? We got to hold it over for a month before we can approve it. Mr. Scroggstead moves. Ms. Naylor seconds it. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. We got the same with solar. We got petition 23-PC-71. It's text amendment to the 10-15-20 solar energy systems. Is there a motion to hold this over until our May meeting? Mr. Hudson moves. Mr. Scroggstead seconds it. Any discussion? Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. An administrator monthly update. I'd like to announce the appointments of the Lee County Safety Committee as follows. We have Mike Copine as Chair of the Public Safety. Mike Zeman is the SERMA representative, along with fellow county officials. We got Sheriff Whalen, Kevin Lally, Dave Anderson, Kathy Ferguson, Amy Johnson, and Stacy Stewart on the Safety Committee. Just wanted to announce that. Does anybody else have anything at this time? Wendy, do you have anything?
Just one quick thing. I want to draw your attention to the agenda looking a little bit different tonight when it gets to your committee reports. We reorganized it so that the standing committees will report first, and then following that will be the other board liaison or appointments. So things like the Board of Health, LCIDA. We know that you don't always meet, those other appointments don't always meet monthly. So when it gets to you, just go ahead and say no report. We're going to keep them on here though every month as a placeholder so that we remember to ask you if there's a report. But again, if you don't have a report, just say no report this month. That's all I have, Bob.
Thank you. No comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Kitson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. After attending the last zoning hearings, and I've attended several in the past, these two we voted on tonight were very interesting to sit in on. And I encourage anybody to, I know some of you said you watched them from home, but to Mr. Hudson and I both were here and just really observe what goes on and how hard those people work on the zoning board. There's several coming up in May on solar, and it gives you a whole new insight into what's really going on other than just sitting here saying, oh yeah, they did that. I mean, there's a lot of activity goes on. It's nice to be involved in.
Anything else? Yes, Mr. Hudson.
I agree with Mr. Copine, but also being present at those ZBA meetings, you see the actual people that are involved in it, whether those are for or against it, but you listen to their story and their information. As myself, you gather a lot of input from how they feel about these, and I think it's important for everybody to know that, and you can only put so much of that, in the minutes and that, but I really, I try to make as many as I can. I think it's important, at least if you can, to do it because it's completely different than what you're reading minutes than what you actually see.
Well said.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? So now we'll move to 10, the public comments section. So I have Judy Harvin who'd like to speak to us. She is involved with the campground, or what we just talked about. I guess not a campground, but go ahead, Judy.
The retreat center, yes. So I'm not entirely certain what I want to say, so bear with me. I appreciate your voting for the rezoning. I'm not sure where I'm going to go from here. This has been an educational process for me. I have a small business. So currently I offer 2 retreats a month from June until September. My retreats are capped at 16 people. In general, they sell out. There's a need and an interest in this service. People tell me that when they Google Midwest Yoga Retreats, my business comes up on top. I get calls year round. I've gotten calls from the Chicago Tribune, from Midwest Living, and USA Today. So I've gotten on the map from them, and it's a tiny business. So I think that there's a real interest in this kind of a thing. The thing that's causing me pause is as I'm going forward with this is just the tip of the iceberg for me, to continue my business. The requirements with the state, with the health department, and with the county health department are pretty large for a small business like mine. So what I'm looking at now, I still haven't gathered all of the financial investment that I'll have to make to be able to continue. But I guess it may not be a smart financial move for me, given the size and the scope of my business. So I'm not really sure I'm not really asking for anything. I'm just saying that small businesses like mine sometimes cannot bear the burden. For example, my farm has been in my family for 50 years. And it's always been a recreational property for us. And it's a gorgeous piece of property. And I'm excited to share it with people from the city. My well draws good water, but I may have to sink a new well because of the health codes. If that happens, I'm not sure I'm going to proceed because I'm a little nervous about that. Because once you sink a new well, when you have a good well, we all know, we've heard horror stories about what happens then. And I'm just not sure. And I guess what I'm saying is thank you very much for passing it. And I'm considering my options. I know I need to also resurvey my property in order to get the smaller parcel that we ended up asking for, even though I did pay, by the way, for the whole 40 acres to be rezoned, which was kind of a first financial burden. So I just think as you proceed and small businesses come for support, maybe consider the financial burdens sometimes that are necessary and expected as we try to create these unique businesses that don't really fit into a certain model. That's part of my problem too, is I'm so unique that I don't fit anywhere really. And I love being unique because that's why I'm successful, but it also carries a burden of trying to blaze the trail. So I just leave you with that thought, and I'm going to do my best to continue what I'm doing, but I'm not exactly certain how I'm going to proceed, but I do want to thank you for your support so far.
Thank you. And I hope our county departments are working with you to try to get it resolved. So thank you. I'll move on to county. I have none for county organizations. We'll go to reports of standing committees. County Services, Mr. Scrogstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The County Services Committee met April 10th. Attached to the onboard are my approved minutes if anyone wants to take a look at them to get a little more detail on what happened. Also on the onboards, there are department reports from Greg Gates on lots. He has plenty of stats along with future developments with lots. Chris Tennyson always has some great information on what he's doing with the education in Lee County. I also like that he includes any legislations that are being proposed that could impact both positive and negative of our education process in Lee County, depending on where you're leaning. There is also a report from Paul Gorski in the IT department, which also includes his newest IT tech that he recently hired. Then there's a report from our transportation department. And I wish that everyone would take the time to read this PACER report that has been done by Brian, our assistant county engineer. When I looked at this PACER report, and PACER is an acronym of Pavement, Service, Evaluation, and Rating. This report is very, very detailed report on the condition of Lee County roads, on the county roads in Lee County. Since I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to our transportation department, I thought Brian made this report just for me, but he provides it on a regular basis. So I guess I'm not that special. Anyways, I highly encourage everyone to look at this report so you get an idea on what our highway department is doing every day. Also, our county clerk's office, Nancy Peterson, indicated that during the consolidated election went very smooth. She also indicated that we had an increase in voter turnout from last time. I still think 18% is a set turnout for any election, and I'm all up for ideas to get the public more involved in our democratic system, even if it's just on the local level. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Scrogstad? Thanks, Jack. We'll go to Public Safety Court Services Committee, Mr. Copine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety met April 10th in this room. Previous meeting minutes were approved without modification. There was no actual report or specific report for animal control. However, Terry Zink was present, and we kind of bombarded her with questions regarding an increase in feral cat population and how the county was approaching the issue and developing a pattern of how to handle some of the issues that were brought up. Nothing from the judges. EMA was here. Kevin brought up that he had hosted a NOAA weather station spotter training at Sauk Valley College, and he attended an IPRA planning meeting in Rochelle in anticipation of exercising reception center. Delivered NOAA weather station weather radios to each school district in Lee County, called to fly drone for felony theft of materials. weather, heavy rain and lightning inhibited flight. Opened the EOC virtually and had disaster declaration signed by the county board chairman in anticipation of severe weather. Monitored weather conditions and sent out emails, excuse me, to employees and partners, including Facebook posts. Conducted damage assessment throughout the county for several storms. Returning from damage assessment on the east side of the county, rock damaged windshield, wind damaged bed cover of the truck, cover replaced. They have yet, I don't know if they've been confirmed yet or not, but there was a report of 2 F2 tornadoes and 2 F1 level tornadoes in the county. Provided weather radio to elections department due to the possibility of severe weather. I just happened to be there to witness the loss of electricity, and the radio came in pretty good. They kept in touch with Nancy's office from down there. Mr. Considine, Damian was there and was the communications contact for the loss of power and everything. Hosted Sauk Valley Community College Police Academy students in the EOC on emergency management. They did have the recent and the first graduating class that had a class session there at the EOC. We had a report from Stacy from probation. Sheriff provided a short, well, relatively short, but all of the information is there so far that I've mentioned. One addition as far as the abandoned property focus, we have moved the old Lee County Infirmary into the action stage as far as sending a letter out to make an attempt to get to the current owners and ask them to section off, fence off, or do whatever they can as far as the status and the condition of the buildings. There's one building there that appears to have been a garage at one time. The roof is caved in on that. If any of the children from the little subdivision that's just to the north of that happen to stray across into that area, they would have access to the building that has the roof caved in on it. The southeast corner of the main facility, the old infirmary or nursing home, has started to collapse from the roof down. It's down below the second level right now. Something needs to be done with it. So they were going to draft a letter and try to get a letter to the owner to have something done there. There were no items under unfinished business, and there was nothing for new business, and there was no particular points for an executive session, and we adjourned the meeting at 11:09. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you if I can.
Any questions or comments?
Before I sign off, I would like to take the opportunity, and I don't know if he knew I was going to say anything or not, but the sheriff's department, EMA, fire departments, and specifically the telecommunicators have done a real good job. Very good. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
We'll go to facilities and maintenance and elevators. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything's in the onboard. We are closing in on being complete with the list that the county had to take care of for the elevator in the new courts building. That elevator project, once it starts, will take 6 weeks or thereabouts, and then we'll be over here to replace the elevator in the old courts building or update all the parts to the elevator over here. Other than that, that's all I've got.
Questions or comments? Thanks, Tom. Go to claims, Mr. Zeman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. 2 meetings to report on, March 22nd. We went, minutes are in your packet, went through 51 claims on that day. Had a few adjustments and corrections, things we're working on. just kind of evolving, mainly credit card bills, how to do them a little quicker and better. That's an ongoing process. Second meeting was April 5th. We went through 64 claims. And once again, we had a couple of rejections because of missing invoices and things like that. But we're fighting through it. And between the department heads and us, I think we'll come to a conclusion, make us all satisfied. That's all I got.
Any questions or comments? Thanks, Mike. Go to Finance, Mr. Sheeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee met last Thursday at 9 a.m. and the minutes are in your packet. Just some highlights. We've got 3 things that are coming out that's before you later on in the agenda, and we'll cover them when we go through. We had the monthly reports that's in your onboard. As far as the county financials go, there's nothing out of the ordinary for this time of year. We're gearing up for property tax receipts coming up. As far as the other income items, those graphs are always really interesting. You've heard me talk about every single month, and you'll hear me talk about it every single month as far as our income goes. Paul's seeing a trend build that we are going to be down in income over our projections, but there's still some line items as far as the countywide sales tax, for example, the state income tax. There's still items that are coming in pretty strong, so we're hoping, fingers crossed, right, Mr. Treasurer, that we'll still end up the year relatively strong. On the expense side, we've got from time to time, I get a department head to tell me that we're going to have a budget adjustment for the end of the year, which is pretty typical, but nothing really concerning as of yet. As far as I think that we had our update report from Sarah and Patty on the ARPA, and nothing really significant to report on that. And I think that's all I've got. If there's any questions, be happy to take them.
Questions, comments? Thanks, Jim. The executive committee, the minutes are in your packet. I really don't have anything else I could share, but the minutes are in there if there's any questions or comments. If none, we'll keep moving on to, now we'll go to reports of other committees or appointments. Board of Health, Ms. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple things. We didn't meet this month, April. We met March 14th at 6:30. Our next meeting will be May 9th at 6:30. Just some quick updates, though. The FDA has authorized a second bivalent booster. So that is for those who are 65 and above or moderately or severely immunocompromised. So as soon as we get the green light from the Illinois Department of Health, that'll be available and it will be published that they can get that, okay? We're also getting the Partnership for a Healthy Lee County. It's called the PHLC. It's a group that we have. It's been on hold for a while since COVID, but we're getting it re-engaged, which is great. The group is various community organizations that work together to address health issues that we have identified. And I think you guys have heard me talk about the I-Plan before. And that's where we're targeting heart disease, obesity, mental health, and substance abuse disorder. So those were the top health concerns that we have identified from our I-Plan. Let's see what else we got. So also, I mentioned this before. So in addition to the schools and sports physicals, they're working on expanding the blood lab draws. So that's an additional service that they're also covering, which is really convenient for members of our community. A couple other things. You guys will see this brochure. This is a new pamphlet that they came out, the health department, for programs and services. Take a look, please. I know these often get tossed in the trash, but there's a lot of things that our county health department does for us. So this is a quick dashboard glance that you can see. And most of you have seen a communication from me in an email that to prepare you for the meeting in May. There's a couple of folks at the health department, along with myself, Wendy, who've been working really hard on some new changes that have been proposed for the environmental health fees. They're going to be proposing that to you in the May meeting. I believe I gave you guys some very high level details of that. If you do have any questions or want more specific details, you can contact me or Jen. I gave you her contact number and extension at the Board of Health, okay? So just to be prepared for that meeting, if you do want to have come in, with a bigger detail of what they're going to show you, they're going to have a really good presentation to show you all of the past and future suggestions that they have, okay? Does anyone have any questions?
Questions or comments for Katie?
No?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Katie.
Thank you.
Awesome report. Thank you. We'll go to 911 Board, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The minutes of the March meeting are in the agenda packet. There wasn't a meeting in April, but our next meeting will be Thursday, May 25th. Director Dallas provided me with some call statistics from the storms. The average daily call volume for the sheriff's office was 56, and for Dixon Police Department 52, and 26 911 calls in a 24-hour period. On March 31st, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., which is a 2-hour window, the sheriff's office received 56 calls, Dixon PD 4. There were 31 calls in a 2-hour period. And for April 4th, in a 1-hour period from 12 to 1 p.m., the sheriff's office received 34 calls, Dixon PD 35, and there were 27 calls in a 1-hour time frame. The important thing here is that if you would multiply whatever it's a 2-hour period or 1-hour period times those numbers, you're going to come up with a large amount of calls handled by them, which some of us realize, but I know the public probably do not realize how many calls that are handled by our telecommunicators for all the departments, plus whatever they receive from other agencies. So I just think that's something that I'm glad that Ms. Dallas provided that information so everybody's aware of that. That's all, sir.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thanks,
Yeah, I
Keen.
had a question.
Yes.
Keen, is that call volume, is that normal or what's that?
I will have Ms. Dallas, if she would, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. What Mr. Hudson just read, in a daily 24-hour period, our typical call volume for the Sheriff's Department, and this is average throughout 2022, 46 calls typically just on the Lee County Sheriff's line, 52 calls on DPD line, and then 26 911 calls in a 24-hour period is a typical day. During the storm, and I'm going to specifically point to April 4th, from noon to 1-hour time frame, we had 34 calls just for the Sheriff's Department, 35 calls that came into the Dixon Police line, and 27 911 calls in a 1-hour time frame. And then on the March 31st date, we had 31 911 calls in a 2-hour time frame. So basically in a 1 and 2-hour time frame during those storms, those are more calls we received in those time frames than we do in a 24-hour period.
Oh, okay.
So our telecommunicators were rocking and rolling. They did a
Yes.
fantastic job. And full disclosure, we did on the April 4th date, we had 14 abandoned calls. And when I say that, that means 14, there's 7-digit emergency lines, which are Dixon Police and Lee County Sheriff's Department. And then we have our 911 lines. We had 14 abandoned calls on the non-emergency lines, and we had 1 abandoned 911 call. Basically, meaning we didn't have a body to answer that call or to be able to pick that up because everybody was processing and taking calls at that time. Perfect storm on April 4th. A little bit of a sidebar. We had a communications training officer and they're training a girl that's been there since February, and she's kind of getting ready to get on her own, but not quite yet. And then we had our float person, which this board approved last July. So thank goodness we had our 3rd telecommunicator in there. It was a perfect day. And then I happened to walk in the room at that time. We literally, at the time the storm hit, the one telecommunicator that was our training officer went to the back of the room and just started answering a phone without a screen, non-emergency line. She didn't have a screen in front of her. I called our chief deputy at the Sheriff's Department and said, we need more communications because we didn't have the telecommunicator at the back of the room or myself. We didn't have communications equipment because there were only 3 councils. So Chief Deputy Rankin brought over 3 extra portable radios. So the communications officer and myself were transmitting calls over a portable radio, and we had 3 telecommunicators manning the booth. And the trainee, she got initiated really quick.
Right.
She did a fantastic job. All the dispatchers, just, I cannot say enough. And then the field responders were very patient with us. Some of the guys in the cars were calling ComEd for us because we couldn't get an outside line free to make calls to ComEd or to the street highway department. Was fantastic that day, bringing out road signs and barricades and so forth. I mean, it was a team EMA. I realized at the department head meeting yesterday that it really was a true team effort. Every county agency somehow was impacted by that. But I would be remiss if I didn't specifically recognize the telecommunicators that day. They were
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Thank you
are
so
those two.
much.
Thank you.
Definitely an awesome job by everybody. Any questions or comments? We'll move down to tourism, Mr. Gascoigne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your package, you can see the report provided by Lee County Tourism. I attended this month's tourism meeting, and they are continuing to promote Lee County well and have increased their spending on digital platforms. And you can see a full-page ad in this Northwest Illinois on page 21. Our tourism focus group continues to meet and discuss the future options for the promotion of Lee County tourism. Our next focus group meeting will be on May 5th.
Any questions or comments? Thanks, Ron. We'll go to Tri-County Opportunities. Angie Shepard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had met and we had done some approvals for finance as normal on that council. And they also announced they're having their first ever family softball tournament in August as a fundraiser. So I'll have to get that information over here for you guys to consider. And I believe that's also listed on their website too, if you want to look that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? We'll go to the Blackhawk Hills Regional Council, Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone. Ms. Shepard again.
Yes, thank you. We met for the Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone, several new appointments to that given the recent election, as well as some members falling off. So there was a little bit of a talk around initiation and welcoming. And then we also discussed the trailer bill that's happening that I believe Win Stoller had put in to essentially hold that the surrounding or adjacent properties around that Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone so that they would not be impacted by solar. And I do believe that bill is unique to only that enterprise zone. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So that is the update for that. Any questions?
Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you just go into a little more detail about what you mean with the solar in the enterprise zone? Sorry, what the bill has in it or what?
So from my understanding, the trailer bill talked about how that specific enterprise zone had tremendous investment because of the train transit area that they put in there. And so they decided that certain areas adjacent to that would not be basically able to be zoned solar or any other thing. And it was only unique to that enterprise zone, not any other in the state of Illinois, as far as I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Thank you, Angie. We'll go to Lucida, Mr. Akery.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was our first meeting. It was with the new executive director, Tom Demmer. He was introduced to everybody, and everybody was introduced to him. He's hitting the ground running with a lot of good energy with all his networking abilities, and it's going to be a good thing having him part of LCIDA. Glenn Hughes, the new mayor of Dixon, was introduced, and then just a few updates on Gateway and Industrial Park, the Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone, HB 4412, and then also one of the things that you guys can check out if you get a chance would be the new website for LCIDA. It kind of there wasn't one much, or if there was one, it wasn't much before, but it's new and improved and looks pretty good. So check things out there. I don't have anything else. Good.
I would agree with Reed. Check out the website. I mean, Tom Demmer's done a lot already. I mean, that thing seems to be taking off, and it's a exciting group to work with, and I think we're going to at least get some actions out of it. So they got a new website. The last Lee County website was Lee County, Florida, so at least we got one in Illinois now. So anyhow, any questions or comments for Reed? Okay, thank you. We'll move down to CIRMA, Mr. Zeman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended my first CIRMA meeting down in Bloomington this morning. Learned a lot. I mean, very interesting. CIRMA is Counties of Illinois Risk Management Agency. It's a cooperation of about 20 to 25 counties, similar to us. Let's say like a Grundy County or a Ogle County, Winnebago, Boone, none of the big counties. And they do risk management stuff that we can't do on our level, and their size is just about right. For Wendy's information, they do have a few changes in personnel as far as claims adjusters, which you will be introduced to them. It seems like a really good organization. We meet again quarterly in either July 26th or 27th. That's it.
Any questions or comments? Thanks, Mike. We'll move to UCCI, Mr. Kitson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in Springfield on the 28th and 29th of March. The monthly meeting, we talked about the changes in solar, renewable energy, solar and wind. Also, there's been some conversation about a pipeline that's going across central Illinois. Doesn't affect us at all. And then there was a legislative meeting where we spent time with the congressmen and senators and representatives that could come over, and worked out very well. It's a good meeting, and any questions? I'll try to answer.
Questions or comments? Thanks, Tom. We'll go to Illinois Association of County Board Members, Mr. Copine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. IACBM met the 14th of this month and spent an hour and a half going over the more pertinent Senate House bills. The one that stuck out the most, that probably reemphasized the way the county had voted on our UTV ordinance and everything, was reinforced. There was a bill that was introduced that would make the counties not liable for use of UTVs and everything on the county roads, as was being requested. The Illinois State trial attorneys were successful in blocking that or getting that turned down. So that, and Lee County came up as probably one of the highlights as far as the amount of work that was put in by the committees that dealt with all of the research. So that will not take place as far as I understand. And I apologize because I had 5 or 6 pages of stuff and I wasn't anticipating giving a report on everyone. We'd be here for an hour and a half going through all of it. So if you have any questions on any specific bills other than the UTV, I can get the information. I've got packets of them there at the house and we can go over them. I will say that Kelly Murray, the executive director of IACBM from Springfield, I know keeps in touch with Wendy if there's anything that comes in between and pertains to Lee. How that woman does it, I don't know. But she keeps track of an awful lot of stuff. And then Taylor, the attorney that works side by side with her, is the same way. They're phenomenal. They're on top of almost everything that they can be involved in. So that's all I have.
All right. Any questions or comments for Mike? Thanks, Mike. We're down to unfinished business. We have none before us. New business. We have resolution appropriation 22-00349-00 to be our, I don't know what the acronym is for the highway department. I think this is defining ARPA funds and state money, I think, for the replacement of culvert on, I think West Brooklyn Road, or Brooklyn Road. Yep, box culvert. Is there a motion to get this on the table? Mr. Scrogstad moved, Mr. Wilson seconds it. Dave, you want to come up and explain this to us?
Sure. I really don't even know. I mean, this isn't necessarily required. I've just done this really out of an abundance of caution for myself. I'm used to getting audited by state and federal auditors when I do a job. And so the first thing that you're always asked is, how was this appropriated for? So this being sort of a unique situation with the ARPA funds, I said, well, I thought, let's just get an appropriation resolution that appropriates the ARPA funds for the job, and then the county matching funds as well to take care of the financial end of it.
Any questions or comments for Dave? All right, we'll move forward. Any comments or questions? We got a first, a second. All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Dave. Go to B, Lee County Electrical Aggregation Award. I'm going to have Wendy take this one.
So Mike Mudge, who's our consultant that helps us with this, attended a couple of the committee meetings, but for those of you that weren't at those meetings, I'll just give you a little bit of a background. So in 2011, the state of Illinois passed legislation that allowed government entities such as ourselves to consolidate small businesses and residences into an aggregation program to actually collect and accept bids and rates from suppliers. So this is something following that legislation that was adopted. It required a referendum, and Lee County did pass a referendum to allow the county board to do this. So following that, ever since 2011, we've been doing this process of typically been every 3 years. We go through and look at the contracts, look at the aggregation rates, and make a decision as to who our supplier is and what the term of the next contract will be. We're at that point again tonight. So in your packet, you actually do have suppliers and rates. Mike, again, as our consultant, went out and solicited these bids. And you're going to see in your packet there, we've got actually 3 different companies. There's 4 on the list. However, AEP Energy, I want to point out, did not get back to us with an updated bid today. So now there's 3 to choose from. What we're looking for from you tonight is a motion to approve a provider and a term. In other words, do we want 1, 2, or 3-year terms? The last thing I'll point out is that if you selected, for example, on Dynergy, the first one, if you selected a 3-year term, you would pay $8.01 for each of the 3 years. If you select a 2-year term, you're going to pay $7.06 essentially for each of the 2-year term. So it's not a 1, 2, and 3 year with different rates in different years, but rather it's the same rate for each of 2 years if you were to select the 2-year. With that, I will take any questions on that.
Questions? Let's get a motion on the floor. Mr. Kitson.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion based on our past history and what we've done, that we go with MC Squared Energy for a 2-year contract at 7.45.
Mr. Sheeline, you want to second that?
Yep.
All right. So we got a first and a second. Any discussion? Mike, you got something you want to share with us?
Just real quick. Sometimes people ask me, what the big deal is, and I just want to put something out to the county board. Last summer, ComEd's rate was 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and the rate we tied in 3 years ago was 5.6 cents, less than half. So what does that mean? Well, this group of customers, residents and small businesses in unincorporated areas, use about a little bit over 30 million kilowatt hours. So if we're saving 1 cent per kilowatt hour for customers, that's $300,000 that stays in the county. So when we were at 5 cents average last year from June through this June, that's about, if my math is about $1.5 million. So that's kind of the big deal. And we're getting harder and harder time to get suppliers to bid. We used to have about 6, 7, 8 bids, but we still have a good rate. And I just saw something this week. Ohio utilities have about a 10 to 12 to 13 cent rate for their customers now. So we're still doing good in Illinois. And thanks to the previous boards here for their insight into looking at this and for all the assistance we get from your staff. I just thought it'd be worthwhile to take 2 minutes to give you the numbers.
And awesome point. Thank you. And this gives the residents of Lee County the option to do this. They don't have to switch over.
Correct. People can opt out. Oh, and one other thing I mentioned to the committees, the 2 committees I met. With solar, if you were on solar and you changed to a supplier in that, you would lose your credits. In January, they changed that. If you have credits now and you switch to ComEd, you switch to a solar, or you switch to a supplier or another supplier, that holdover credits, that power that you have banked up, rolls with the account. It's not lost now. That's a big item, and that's a change from when I met with you earlier in the week.
Sure. When can Lee County residents switch over to this new plan?
They will start getting opt-out letters probably in June. And if they don't want to be part of it, they can opt out. All other customers don't have to do anything. They're automatically in the program. So.
All right. Any questions or comments for him? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much for the time.
Got a first and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. The approval of Lee County 2022 financial audit. Mr. Rudolphi, you want to come up, give us your 1 minute?
Thank you. I'll try to keep it short. So we went through, our audit is complete. It's actually more than one audit. So there is a full county audit and then there's single audits, and those are typically for funds that are spent, federal funds spent more than $750,000. So it's a clean, unmodified audit, which is your best audit you can do. So we're good for the county audit. The independent auditors report, again, on how our financials and our internal controls went, is a clean, unmodified. And then the single audits for the federal, that would be like ARPA and the LOTS, legal transportation, is also clean, unmodified. All of this is kind of in your packet, but a couple of things that they noted. The federal funding that was spent over the last year, just federal funds, that's going to be ARPA and LOTS, was $7.8 million. And if you take that into perspective, our general fund was about $10 million worth of expenditures. So, you know, in my world, that's a small, I'll call that small dollars from where I've come from before, but it shows that we're very frugal with our money. We're spending it well, and we're using it correctly, and we're in a clean audit. ARPA funds still has about $4.5 million remaining. Our pension's in a good spot. One of the charts that is in there that I wanted to show you is the days in fund balance. If you can find that one, it looks like this. If anybody has question on that, I just wanted to explain, we had an accounting change over the last year. We used to have IMRF in its own fund and health insurance in its own fund, and we've moved it to the general, which means that's why your expenditures are a little bit more, and so your days funds will come down. So if we restated those first 4 years in that chart, it would be very similar to what's the last year, this 100 days. That's about it. Any questions?
You mentioned the county pension retirement funds. They're well funded, right?
Actually, they're over 100%.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, if you were looking, you know, at a private pension, they're usually, if they're at 80 to 85, you're doing well. So yeah, we are doing very well with the pension. Again, that's IMRF. It's, both for regular IMRF and SLEP for like the sheriff's department.
Sure. Any questions for Paul? Comments? All right. Is there a motion to approve?
2 minutes? Sorry, Tom.
Is there a motion to approve the audit? Mr. Sheeline moves. Mr. Robinson seconds it. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The SIPC intergovernmental agreement, it's cooperative. We want to join. I'm going to tag Wendy on this again. So Wendy?
So the Illinois Governmental Joint Purchasing Act allows local governments to, essentially purchase items jointly, supplies and services jointly. So, and we currently do this with other co-ops that we're members of. We're looking to join this co-op to essentially add another tool to the toolbox. So what we're looking for here tonight is approval to join the SIPC co-op with, let me back that up. We're looking for authority for Chairman Olson to be able to sign an intergovernmental agreement with this co-op upon approval by the state's attorney. You might notice that in here, the actual agreement is not here. That's because state's attorney's office is still working to finalize that agreement. And if you authorize the chairman to sign it with the approval and review of the state's attorney, we should be good to go.
I would tag your motion with his approval. Mr. Wilson, you move. Nancy seconds it. Any discussion? Yes.
Wendy, can you just talk a little bit more about who the organization is that we're signing with?
So this organization originally started as local school districts across the state of Illinois, and then they have expanded now to include other local governments such as counties, municipalities. Is that where you were going?
I don't know where I was going. Thank you.
It just allows us to buy repair parts through the co-op that are considered cheaper than we normally could through vendors. Correct? Mr. Wilson, would that be how you describe it?
That'd be a good way to describe it.
All right.
I have a question, Bob.
Yes.
I missed it last time. Is there a cost to be in this co-op?
In this particular one, there is no cost to join it.
Okay, we have first, we got a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to go to appointments, but we have a total of 8 appointments or reappointments on the agenda. If there are no objections, we will approve them all with one motion. Is there a motion to approve all 8 at one time? Mr. Hudson moves, Mr. Copine seconds. Any discussion? If none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Well, one.
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain.
All right. And, Mr. Kitson is abstaining. Is there a motion to approve all 8 appointments and reappointments? Mr. Sheeline moves. Mr. Wilson seconds. Any discussion? If none, to approve all 8 at once, vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
Motion carried. Thank you. I don't have any executive session tonight. We got approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I bring up something on the last subject?
absolutely.
For these reappointments, I mean, their names on the page to a lot of people. Is there some way that down the road in the future, we could get a resume or some kind of information on these candidates or how they're chosen?
So we had a form that they fill out, and we got a little pushback from the reappointment people. When they're reappointment, they didn't want to fill out the form. Wendy, you want to take that?
I will. So about a year ago, actually, this board did ask for some sort of, just like that, a resume. So we created a document and we started sending it out, and we're fairly successful in getting individuals to return it. But recently there have been a lot of pushbacks, especially coming from like the fire districts, because those individuals have served oftentimes on these boards for a long time, and for them to fill out a form to explain who they are and why they are, why they're qualified, or not qualified isn't the right word, but why they're interested in serving in the position. We got some serious pushback. And since we can't really require that, we're going to continue to try and get the form when we can. And when we cannot, you won't see one.
Okay, thank you.
Could you speak to more on why we can't require that?
Well, statutorily, the county board has the responsibility of making these appointments, but there's nothing in the statute that says we have to have a resume before we do so. And historically, what we've done, before we created the form a year ago, it was to take the recommendation of, in this case, like a fire district, we would just take that recommendation from that fire district without asking for anything. So we thought we were doing a step up by asking for a little bit of information about them. But as I said, we're getting this pushback. We're not going to stop asking for it, but the pushback was too, if we hold this up and wait for a form, then they end up with a board that doesn't have enough people appointed on it to have a legal meeting. So there's a practical reason why we've got to keep these moving forward.
Especially the fire board, the one that didn't want to fill it out, they wouldn't have a quorum at the next meeting. So I finally said, let's move on and do it. But new appointments for sure, and reappointments, I think we'll continue to ask, but some of them are not forthgiving. Yes.
I just want to point out for the record that the ETSB reappointments, they all filled out the form and submitted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, they do.
Any other comments? All right. Is there a motion to approve the county officers' reports? Ms. Naylor moves. Mr. Friel seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to approval of monthly revenue report, claims paid, claims paid in vacation, and payroll paid. Is there a motion to approve all of those? Mr. Friel moves. Ms. White seconds it. Any discussion? If no discussion, this has to be done in a roll call. So Nancy, would you please do a roll call? Vote.
Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
White. Yes. Wilson. Zeman,
Yes.
Acree,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Friel,
Yes.
Gascoigne,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carried, of course. Approval of board member mileage and per diem. I need a motion for that. Mr. Book moves, Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to adjourn. Ms. Naylor moves. Mr. Gascoigne seconds it. All